Welcome into the latest episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner. This is the match day one episode for the European 2024 championships on the soccer pitch. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner. You can follow me on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner. Of course, if you want to be notified of these type of going lives or when the podcast comes out, please subscribe at the real underscore G Warner on the platforms that you need to, or Betting the Pitch on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. 5-star reviews are huge in that search rankings too. So if you could do that, throw a comment question in there. Happy to cover more things if they're relevant to whatever podcast I'm doing. And of course, still doing baseball podcasts in there every Tuesday night with that A Brooks Bets. Plus, we have some others coming down the line in the other sports that we cover. But today is going to be a European Championship podcast. My screens look horrible. So hopefully, if you're watching me live, hopefully you can hear me. That's probably the most important thing. Video, I don't know what to say, but we're in Sunsplash, Dallas, Texas, as the Dallas Mavericks are taking on the Boston Celtics right next door. But this is a soccer pod. So that's what we're going through. Match day one, we did have one match completed, the opener in Munich, which saw Germany with a dominant victory. Not a great start to my tournament, but I got plenty of futures out there, some still to come. So if you're following me on Twitter or not yet on my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/real underscore G Warner. Best spot to get all my plays, lean trade ups, and you would have, I think, I guess, limited some of the losses if you had joined in some of the baseball plays today. It all looked great to start. But let's get into it. It's time. So we're going to start on match day one with the Saturday, June 15th matches. We have an early one in the United States, kicking off, I believe, in like the 3 o'clock hour or so in Germany. But as soon as my computer will cooperate, thank you for those of you that are tuning in right now. Plan is to go through, pick my favorite bet, cut that into a 1 minute reel at the real underscore G Warner on Instagram and on YouTube. So in case you want to do this episode on a much shorter time frame than the probably 40 minutes or so that this will go. But yeah, this is really fun. Hopefully this video hasn't died completely because it's not looking great from what I'm seeing. And I literally can't even switch tabs. My computer might be time for it to upgrade to the new Apple AI enabled devices, or maybe they're just killing all their old devices to force you to upgrade. That certainly is what the stock has done recently. And wasn't planning to make this a stock podcast, but until I can get some lines coming up, I guess I'll be doing that. I swear. Maybe it's just Google Chrome. Regardless, we're having a great time right now trying to fill in some time frames where I can't even click on a new tab. Wow. Well, this is fun. Let's see if I can open something here locally. So it must be my Chrome is just completely dead, which is a great feeling. Sorry for all of you. I think this is the first time my computer has completely decided to stall out while I'm live broadcasting, but hopefully it will wake up as I close some windows frantically. Maybe please somebody, please. And I totally understand anyone who would be logging off because this is super fun. Not a lot of soccer content when I can't get the lines in front of me or change the let me see. Can I grab maybe I can grab it on another form of device and then I can talk about it until we get some sort of activity on my background screens. Okay, so we're gonna do this on off of the phone. My favorite type of scenario. I have been following lines pretty closely ever since they really came out. So let's see. Okay, we're not in November. Okay, this is going phenomenally well. All right, let's move to the 15th of June. Okay, right as the computer wakes up. Great, great, great. Okay, we're here. We'll start with Saturday, June 15th, the 9 o'clock Eastern time start in the United States. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Hopefully this is all recording great. I'm sure I'll probably have to do a second recording of this, which will be super fun. But we'll start with Hungary, a quarter goal underdog on a neutral to Switzerland. Total here is 2.25. Choose very heavily to under. What do I think about this game? So I went to Hungary in a road game at Leipzig in the eastern part of Germany, and the Hungarian fans were all over the city center, were all over the stadium, were making much louder noise than all of what seemed like Eastern Germany. I know there's big divides, especially with elections lately in Deutschland. And I think the far right, which doesn't really equate to the far right here in the United States, but apparently there's a lot of infighting within that country. I guess not a big surprise based on history, but I don't know necessarily if that means that there will be less support for Die Mannschaft, who are off to a great start today in Munich, but they're not really relevant, I guess, to this matchup. But I think it does speak to the Hungarians, how willing they were to travel for a Nations League match to Germany on the road to Germany. Got a win there. I was got an early set piece goal off a corner kick and held on and won in a fashion that really didn't look too troubled against the Germans. Now they get to face a Swiss team that is I think devoid of scoring at this point. Breel, who's been like the striker for Switzerland for many years now, he's been in and out of the lineup and really has barely played at all this season. I think that's a big deal if you can't find goals in this Europe international tournament. We did see a lot of goals scored in the opener today, but I wouldn't expect that sort of thing to happen too much. I think this is going to be a very defensive tournament, which is exactly where dogs and unders come in, which is I think is exactly a reason why I'm putting so much time into it. Would be anyway, but I think it's a great spot to make a bunch of money, and I'm looking forward to that, certainly to close off this soccer campaign. But Hungary, a quarter goal underdog, so there's no home field advantage here. I mean, the Swiss are not too far, but the Hungarians should travel. There should be a lot of, I think, just random Eastern Germans there that are there to see some high quality football with a lot of talented players in the summertime. What else is there to do? So when you're landlocked, I guess. So I don't see much of a home field advantage. This number is saying that Switzerland are a quarter goal favorite to Hungary, probably might even close a half of a goal favorite in terms of where this number has moved. There has been some money coming in on Hungary, but I don't know if that's going to continue as we get closer to the game time. Total is pretty low at 2.25, but like I said, I think it's going to be a low scoring tournament. So my biggest interest in this matchup are Hungary, the quarter goal underdog, and also under 2.25. I do have a future out there on Switzerland under 3.5 points. I wouldn't be shocked if they somehow made it to the second round with only 3 points, drawing each of their matches. I think that's certainly possible. I just don't think the Swiss side is as strong. Granit Xhaka had a great year, of course, with Bayer Leverkusen. But I just don't really think there's enough up top. I think that plays into the total here. So Hungary and under are my biggest interest in the opener on Saturday, June 15th. Next matchup, certainly much bigger names, Spain and Croatia. Spread here is Spain a half a goal favorite. Juice is split both ways. Over under is 2.25. Juice more to the over than to the under. Spain with kind of a new look team. They're going to be starting potentially two of the flashiest young players probably that have ever started for Spain on the wings in Nico Williams and also in Lamine Yamal. I think average age of those two is probably like 20. I think Nico's a little bit older than the 16-year-old Lamine Yamal. I don't know if he's 24 necessarily, but on the other side, Croatia are going to be extremely old but extremely talented and trustworthy. I think I'd rather be on the side of waiting till Croatia prove to me that they're over the hill rather than betting that they will beat Portugal, side that I've picked to win the entire competition. If you listen to the futures episode just this week, and Croatia just did that in a friendly a few days ago. So Croatia are still there, still have questions scoring goals, I think, which does reflect in this total at 2.25. But I mean, Spain is not the Luis Enrique possess the ball the whole time and see if they can win 1-0. I think they're going to be more aggressive, but the question is how aggressive can they be against Croatian side, who will do a lot to defend. I think they'll set up in defense, but I think they'll also try to control the ball a lot more than Spain is comfortable with. Spread is pretty significant. No home field advantage here, really. Croatia is certainly a smaller nation than Spain, but I don't think there's a ton of Spaniards. That'll be more than you'd expect than a normal thing for an opener group stage matchup against Croatia. I think this is going to be another really tight match. So in terms of where number has moved, initially I saw 3/4 of a goal on Croatia, very juiced. It's now come to about reasonable, even what you'd expect on an NFL point spread on a Sunday afternoon in the fall here in the United States. So no real edge, I think, either direction. No real tell on where this number will end up moving. But I like the Croatian side getting a half of a goal. I think the under is, I think, going to be a valuable play for a lot of this tournament. Spain certainly are going to put that under threat, but if Croatia are sitting in defense and trying to possess the ball as much as possible to keep it away from Spain, I think that plays into under as well here. So I like Croatia and I like under. Moving to the nightcap, we have Italy hosting Albania. Italy, a 1.25 goal favorite with all the juice. Over unders 2.5, juice a little bit more to under than to over. Slight edge, I think, I guess, in terms of what's been being bet is to that under 2.5. Albania had an incredible qualification campaign. Unfortunately, so did Scotland, and they got massacred by Germany, though certainly a bad start and a red card in the first half. That also surrendered a penalty, pretty much made that bed in the opener. But Albania, I think, are going to be up against clearly a side like Italy who don't have a huge crowd advantage behind them. So they're not hosting this year. Italy coming off not qualifying for the World Cup, the pain of that after being able to pull off a win in the okay, I guess I've run out of application memory. That's now one of the errors that just came up. Hopefully this is not completely killing everything that I'm recording, but hopefully not. Anyway, I'm not going to navigate off the odds page because I don't want to lose it again. But I think Albania will go into this matchup being as defensive as any team that we'll see in this tournament. They are in the group of death, the worst, which I guess is not as deadly because you can get 3 teams out of each group, but it's still having to go against Italy, Croatia, and Spain. It's a pretty tough draw for the Albanians, I think, making either a European Euro tournament debut, or at least one they haven't been to in a while or don't get there very often. The Albanians, though, I think are going to sit in defense and make this as hard as possible in Italy to score goals. We saw Scamacca finish the year scoring a ton of goals for Atalanta, formerly of Sassuolo, before moving to West Ham and not really doing much for the West London or East London club. I think the Albanians are underrated here. Seeing this number might climb to 1.5 goals. It seems like most money is really coming in on the Italians, which I think you probably would expect. But the number was actually kind of floating the other direction. I have it at 1.25 this whole time, but looked like more money was coming in on Albania than it was on Spain, or excuse me, on Italy. But that has completely changed. The Italians getting bet, like I just said. Total has climbed as well from 2.5 down to 2.25, now back up to 2.5, but at more attractive juice. So I feel like there's, I mean, a market that will be backing the best teams in this competition. I think a lot of money will be coming in that doesn't follow these leagues like I do. So I think there's a lot of value here potentially on the Albanians and under as well here. And I feel like Albania is very unlikely to score. So maybe under 2.5 might be my biggest interest in that one to close out Saturday, June 15th. Moving now to Sunday, June 16th, we have Poland, a 1-goal underdog to the Netherlands. Total is 2.5, juice very heavily to under, more juice on the Poland side. Where has this one moved? Climbed all the way through 3/4 of a goal, though it was very juiced on the Netherlands side, probably pointing towards a +1. But the injuries to Lewandowski and to Swarovski, I believe, in the last friendly before this tournament, brutal luck because everyone was playing their best players. It seemed like 45 minutes or so. And the big deal now here is how are Poland going to score goals? It was already a big question for Lewandowski's injury. I imagine there's a good chance these guys are going to try to get out there and play. We'll see how effective they are. That's probably the biggest question. Early subs, or if they're yanked off before halftime, that certainly would tell that they are not healthy. And we'll see with starting lineups, of course. It's a little bit hard to project what these numbers will do until we see starting lineups, but just going off of what the lines are currently available and believing that those will be an indicator of where this will close. I would expect Poland, though, potentially to not really see most of the money here. Netherlands are the more traditional side, the bigger nation, better at football, of course, as they call it in Europe. And the only thing is with the Netherlands is Ronald Koeman. A lot of the podcasts that I've been listening to, besides my own, of course, a lot of Ronald Koeman haters out there. I don't know if it was related to his struggles at Barcelona, though. Honestly, he was there in a really, really tough time. But it seems like the Netherlands just, I mean, and I think some of the valuable points that were made is that the Dutch really don't I mean, they were a very attacking offensive side. Now they're very conservative under Koeman, and the lineups that he plays seem very, very questionable to me. I'm worried about Poland scoring goals here, so that does concern me about backing their side. But getting a full goal of insurance is a lot, I think, in this tournament, especially with no meaningful home field advantage. The Dutch were pretty loud when I went to Wimbledon, cheering on tennis players, but I don't know that that matters so much in a gigantic German football stadium. So I think my biggest interest here is under 2.5, but I think I like the +1 on Poland as it's not a surprise. I do like the dogs and I do like the unders so far. Moving next to Slovenia hosting Denmark. Slovenia, 3/4 goal underdog. With almost all the juice. Over unders 2.25, juiced very slightly more to over than to under. This line has been moving. Slovenia's getting bet a little bit, but not too much. Some money coming in on over as opposed to under. I think this is going to be a tough one to call because Denmark, I mean, they were one of my darlings, a long shot that I had played to potentially even win the World Cup, and then ended up finishing a horrible group stage, went out there at that level, and it was very disappointing, I thought. Slovenia on the other side, they're getting Josip Ilicic back, who's one of the best creators they have. We saw Benjamin Šeško score a ton of goals for Red Bull Leipzig and really play very well against Real Madrid. Plus a team that I think in Slovenia who were, I mean, they were a full goal underdog to Russia before. I think the Russians were banned from European competitions when the war started. So not a huge, I mean, Denmark certainly were better than Russia and were favorites to them at that point. A long time since has passed as we're, I think, into the year 3 of the war at this point. But Slovenia, I think, are a live dog here. I mean, not a surprise. I was expecting them to be bigger than a goal underdog, but less than a goal. We got an important push on half of a bet at 3/4 of a goal if they lose by a single goal. But I don't like Denmark. I feel like they are in between kind of what to do. They picked a lot of very old players, which is dangerous. I think we see Spain going super young with a lot of average age or regular age talent, but they're playing the kids. Denmark doesn't seem to be doing so, and I think that's a big problem. So I like Slovenia, the underdog, and I like under here as well as the hits keep on continuing, I guess, in that direction. Next, we move to Serbia, 1.25 goal underdog with all the juice to England. Over under is 2.5. Juice more to over than to under. This number has been moving very slightly, maybe some money coming in Serbia just to flip juice a couple pennies, but not too much. Total at 2.5. Has been, I guess, getting more bets towards under than to over, surprisingly. And this is the big question. I am looking to be against England and a very conservative manager in Gareth Southgate, despite having some of the best talent across Europe. They are a big favorite here too, which I think is certainly speaks to the live dogs that I believe will be out there. Serbia, the big question though for the Serbs is that they have such great attacking talent and big name players, but they rarely show up and do much in international competitions. They've got all the talent in the world, but rarely does much come from it. I think that Serbia are going to try to be aggressive and offensive. That seems to be how they always play. I don't think that's a great style against England, who I think are going to play on a counterattack for a lot of this tournament. They're certainly going to seek 1-0 leads and then probably try to kill games in a Massimiliano Allegri style from Juventus this season. But I'm just not really a believer in England at this point, and they are a big favorite to a very talented nation. The big question, though, is can Serbia defend? I'm not sure. And are they going to play in a pragmatic or intelligent style? I think there's a lot of intelligence and pragmatism in this tournament and the way soccer matches are played when you're the inferior side. I think England will be pragmatic. They should not be. But Serbia's big underdog, I think, will probably ignore that type of fact and go in there and try to win this match. And I think that's not exactly the way I'd like to attack England. So I guess I'm interested in Serbia and under, but I feel like it's probably the easiest one for me to kind of let go of this entire tournament because I just feel England, I think in the group stage with less pressure will be very, very good. Use their talent. That certainly has some defensive questions, and that might be enough to keep me off under here in the nightcap on Sunday, June 16th. Moving to Monday, June 17th, with Romania, early one. They are a half a goal underdog to Ukraine. All the juice on the Romanians. Over under is 2.25, juice slightly more to under than to over. This number hasn't been moving too much, a couple pennies on the Romanian side. Total has been getting bet to under a little bit. I think we could see that from a very defensive Romanian side where Ukraine are not defensive whatsoever. They're going to leave themselves open. They're going to attack I do think Ukraine's best style is counterattacking and then using Mihailo Mudryk on counterattacks to use his pace, like he did at Shakhtar Donetsk, but unfortunately has not kicked on at Chelsea because he hasn't been able to do that. I think from Ukrainians' perspective, they're going to try to probably they see themselves the pride of Ukraine and the fight of Ukraine is not something I will ever question. We've seen that in this wartime, and of course, with their soccer players, I think take this very, very personally in all the times that they're representing their nation that's under siege, essentially. But I think the Romanians, they do have some talent. The questions are how much can Romania score? And that's my biggest question. I'm not really sure. So a lot of pressure on the Romanian defense that if they're not going to be able to score a single goal, then it's really hard to get. Obviously, you can't win, but it's very hard to get a point that way. I do think the Romanians, though, will come to play in this tournament. I think there's going to be a lot of competition. Really, a lot of these teams the divides are not that great, especially for Ukraine to be a half a goal favorite on a neutral field. Essentially, they've been playing away from home for years, so maybe they get a little bit more credit for that than most. But I still think it's a big problem for Ukraine not to have any sort of. They might have some support in Germany. They were playing a bunch of matches there internationally, plus their Ukrainian-based sides in Champions League and the continental competitions we're playing in Germany. And I think anyone who doesn't have a dog in this fight is probably rooting for Ukraine. But I think Romania is potential has the potential. I've been following them a long time. They have the potential to potential. I think they have the potential to rain on a Ukrainian parade here. Moving to the next match on June 17th, we have Belgium and Slovakia. Currently, Belgium a 1.25 goal favorite. All the juice on Slovakia on the road. Over under is 2.75. Juice more to under. In terms of where this number has moved, not much at all. A couple of pennies each way, maybe some money coming in on over. 2.75 is a big, big number, and I think that reflects the talent that Belgium have, especially in attack. The questions for Belgium are their age defense, their just age team in general, the blending of younger, talented players with their older core, and that didn't work out, and as part of why they were blamed for crashing out of the World Cup in Qatar. I think the other question is Slovakians and what are they going to do here? I think they're going to play defense this whole time. I think there's a lot more safety in under 2.75 than there is in a plus 1.25. Because the biggest question for me is how are Slovakia going to score? Mark Hamšík is a great talent, but is very old. I think Slovakia best talented or best highest ranking player is probably Skriniar, who's kind of in and out of the lineup for Inter Milan at center back. You could argue Lobotka, who was a big part of the Napoli side that won the Scudetto 2 seasons ago, but then they were horrible last season. So I think Slovakia looked like one of the weaker sides here. So I'm not sure I really want to back them as a 1.25 goal underdog, but I do think the under 2.75 is very interesting to me for this match day one on looks like that would be Monday, the 17th of June. Nightcap on that same day is Austria and France. Austria very close, as one of my friends describes the Austrians are basically the German farmers that there happens to be a border between. And a questionable border at that. So there might be a decent Austrian presence. I think France will travel well too. High expectations for the French to win and certainly to make the final here, I think at a minimum. Austria 1 goal underdog with more juice on France right now. Over under is 2.75. You slightly more to over than to under. In terms of where this number has moved, it's actually Austria been getting bet, which surprises me. And then the total has been moving a little bit more towards under, but not too significantly. Austria is in an interesting spot. I think they are a darling of a lot of people handicapping this tournament or coming into it. The talent isn't anywhere near France. France probably could fill 2 22s before Austria can get really many players in there. Christoph Baumgartner might be able to kind of find a way in, but probably not. I think Austria with a young defender in Pavlovic, who's probably moving, who I saw live at Inter Milan in a match in Champions League this past season for our Red Bull Salzburg. I don't know necessarily where the talent is for Austria. So Ralf Rangnick, though, he basically says when he was asked is, can you kind of press half the time? He said, you can't be half pregnant, so I can't half press. Is essentially the paraphrase. So Austria will press, and France, they like to play a counterattacking style, which means they'll probably not want the ball as much as you'd expect a dominant, talented team like France. But I do expect France to take a lead, try to sit on it, but we'll see when they get that lead. And if they do try to possess the ball and play out from the back, as I expect the proud nations to, that will really put the Austria press in its best position to find a goal, to succeed. I saw Austria and Vienna a couple seasons ago, and they lost at home to Croatia. And I think really the talent of Croatia in stringing passes, and just Luka Modric was a star that night. I think that's the biggest question is can France replicate that? Because the French are best when they're running at an attack. They should have some windows to do that against Austria because they will ultimately be, I think, talented enough um, to break the press and then use their pace. I think Austria will probably be coherent, and thinking about that, especially with a ton of time to prepare, knowing this was their first match for months now, I would expect a very prepared Austrian press, and I think it's going to be hard for France to separate. So I like the +1 on Austria. I lean to under 2 3/4, though I can see certainly some activity in the goal mouth and potentially some 4-on-2s or 4-on-3s, or even just unbalanced or even just balanced odd man rushes is what they call it in the National Hockey League. But just I don't want to see anyone wearing a French kit running at high pace with other attackers on an Austrian team that is trying to or that's press has just been broken. So that's probably where I'm concerned in that matchup. And now I move to Tuesday, which I think the last day of this match day one. Two matches in Group F, the final group. And then I'll summarize this all, get a couple plugs in there, and of course, get out of here with an ultimate best bet. So Turkey, they are not hosting, but you could argue based on the incredible migration, I think after World War II of Turkish people to Germany. When I was in Berlin, 2019, I think before COVID, there's plenty. I mean, so many I mean, you could find Turkish food all over Germany, of course. Actually looking forward to it. Kind of wish I had some right now. But the Turks will have a lot of crowd support there. I think that's a concern for Georgia. In addition to Turkey's talent and size compared to the Georgians as well. Georgia got in. Not scoring many goals, but were able to find a way into Euro 2024. I think their first time in this competition, making it to this stage, the group stage, finals as they would call it. Big deal for the Georgians. And I think the big question is how are they going to score goals? They have great talent in Kvaratskhelia and also in Jordan Mikatadze, plus one of the best goalkeepers in the world right now. But everyone else is the big question. I think Turkey, they have a defense and I don't really know very well. Don't play in really high level teams, and so a lot play domestically in Turkey, which there's a lot of money there. So that's not a slight, but it's just you'd think that they would have moved on to bigger clubs if they were more talented. So I think there are some concerns here for the Turkish side. Total here is 2.25, juice more to under. Georgia getting 3/4 of a goal. It's fairly juiced at the moment, but it seems like there's money coming in on Turkey at this point. I like the Georgian side. I think they're going to play very defensively and try to sit in deep and try to spring counters. I think that will put some pressure on the Turkey back line to control the ball and create, which I don't really think they can. And I feel like this is going to be a Turkey's getting a lot of respect in the marketplace from a lot of the line watching, shopping that I've been doing. And I'm kind of surprised by that. I don't necessarily think that's something that'll continue for too much longer once we get into this tournament. And this is certainly the best team, that probably one of the lowest ranked in this event that you could actually draw. But I'm a believer in the Georgians. So I like the under here. I also under 2.25. That's probably the safest play. I also like get that 3/4 of a goal. I think this is a close one. It's very low scoring, and a Georgian side that go in and try to defend for 90 minutes. Last but not least, in this match day one, I'll go to Portugal, a 1-goal favorite, the Czech Republic. More juice on Portugal right now. Over unders 2 3/4, juice pretty heavily to under. Might see this fall to 2.5. Numbers been falling a little bit, getting some over money hitting, and then the side actually hasn't moved much since I've been tracking it. No movement whatsoever. I'm pretty down on the Czechs. I feel like they really, I mean, they're going to be so reliant per usual on Patrick Schick, who hasn't played much at all over the past few seasons due to injury concerns and lots of injuries that just keep continuing. The Czech Republic, I mean, Thomas Souček is a great player in the Premier League for West Ham and scored a lot of goals, kind of filling in a Declan Rice role, but we could see why or the differences between those two. I just don't see a lot of goals coming from Czech Republic. Portugal probably the hottest team I mean, won every qualifying match. I think had a goal differential of 34. They scored 36, only conceded two, and probably should be motivated after losing a friendly to Croatia at home, especially in the last week or so. So I don't really want to be against Portugal. They, to me, have been a very defensive side for a long time, but under Roberto Martinez, they shouldn't be. Cristiano Ronaldo is always around to hit the bar from a long distance set piece or free kick. There's a lot of concerns. I feel like probably my biggest interest, if anything, is in the under 2 3/4 here. That's really based on Czech Republic not being able to score much and trying to defend with their lives and try to keep this score as low or as close to 0-0 as possible. I think the Portuguese, I mean, they have so much talent. I think rival type of, maybe not the same level as France, but I think England, France, Portugal, all similarly talented. So I don't really want to make a habit of being against Portugal, especially as I'm hoping that they win an easy group or one of the easier group draws and then march on all their way to a second European championship to cash my 7-1. But I think that'll do it for this match day one episode. I hang around because I still have an ultimate best bet that I'll be recording very shortly. Hopefully my technology has not fallen apart, but I guess we'll see. We'll not know until this is finished recording and uploading. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/real_G Warner. Best spot for my plays, leans, write-ups, everything. We do have every Tuesday night Major League Baseball episode coming out at A Brooks Bets on this network. If you're not subscribed yet, do an Apple Podcast, Spotify, leave a 5-star review about baseball, and I'll have at A Brooks Bets read it, recite it, do whatever I need. If you do it about soccer, of course, you'll be talking to me. Still planning a summer episode at A_Schnicker for the NFL. Plus, we got to still tie up our incredible March Madness run with that Big East Ben for the College Basketball Need for Seeds podcast hosted on this network. Other things I can think of course, pregame.com, still doing podcasts there. Thank you for a lot of those of you who have come on to my Patreon recently. Appreciate that, of course, and that support. I think that's the best way to get you can really get the best piece of me possible if you want it. Of course, always available on Twitter as well. But Patreon, I try to check most because that's ultimately where my customers are. So thank you for the support there. I think it's probably time to get into this podcast, Ultimate Best Bet. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have to plug before I really want to get too much deeper into this. But I just, it's been a great run. This is going to be a great tournament. Stay tuned. Also, I might as well mention the Copa America episode I'll be doing sometime soon. I think probably early next week. I thought that these tournaments were starting at the same time. I'm very glad they were not. So I'm pumped about that. But we'll see how that all goes moving forward because there's a lot of unknowns where I feel like European soccer caters to this Euro 2024, and it's going to be a perfect time. I don't know necessarily that the Fox coverage is going to be great. I would probably argue that it's not going to be, I got to say, but it is what it is, and we will certainly make the best of it. So I think it's probably time to get into this episode, and let me see if I can check if there are any comments in StreamYard that I might have missed. Of course, you might be watching this live on Twitter. I appreciate that. If you're watching this later, all lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of BetOnline, SportsBetting.ag. There are links in with promo codes essentially already built into the links on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify and on YouTube. You can click those links, go get free money from the casinos. They are desperate for more players. So if you've not signed up with them yet, go make sure you jump in there and do that. I think it's going to be really worth your while. I'll put it that way. But I think it's time to get in here. So let's jump in. Hey, this is the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet of the Betting the Pitch Euro 2024 Match Day 1 episode. I'll be going through each of the match days in this tournament. Plus, we got a Copa America I guess podcast coming up next week, plus plenty of baseball stuff as always. So make sure you jump on the feeds, leave 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Subscribe to YouTube at the real_G Warner, and that's how you can see this 1-minute version of my 40 or so minute episode. But I got to pick an ultimate best bet so you can grade me on this match day 1. And I'm going to stick in a little bit off the radar, but I mean, come on, all these matches are standalones. We're all watching them all. And if you want more, of course, go to patreon.com/real_G Warner. But my best bet in this episode, I'm going to go with the Belgium-Slovakia under 2 3/4 goals. I think the Belgium golden generation is the bronze or worse. And I feel like Slovakia are going to defend this whole time. I like the portion of a push on three. So go under three, under 2 3/4, Slovakia, Belgium. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I will talk to you next week on a Copa America episode. And of course, stay locked and loaded on Twitter for more coming from the real_G Warner. Thanks again. I will talk to you all very soon. Hopefully, my technology will perform a little bit better next time. And I will talk to you all hopefully down the road. I have no idea when I'll be able to sign off this thing, but I'm trying my best. Oh man, having a great time just hanging out, stalling for not for likes at this point, I don't think, but pretty much I guess I'll just keep rattling off until I can get to a point where I can close this. But